In the embrace of great Nurgle, I am no longer afraid. For his pestilential favor, I have become that I once feared, death. And we're going to teach you how to become death as well on the Vox Cascadia podcast. Welcome back, everyone. This is Chuck, and I'm riding tonight with my buddy Shawn Ross. So I have a tournament this weekend, and Shawn's going to be there too. And yeah, so last minute I decided to play Plague Marines, and Shawn is a great Plague Marines player and is going to teach everybody how to play it, and especially me, out of selfishness. So Shawn, thanks for joining us, bud.
Thank you for having me. Happy to help. I think they're a pretty fun team, so I hope that you do really well.
I hope we do well too, though. I hear that you're going to be at the same tournament. So when this actually comes out, we'll be past the tournament, maybe by a week or two, depending. But again, this is just pure selfishness because I need to learn a team in like 2 days, and I've only played them once, and that was when they first came out. So Shawn's coming in. Shawn just this past weekend actually took down the California boys at AVTT with Zach and Brandon, and you brought Plague Marines to that, right?
I did, and not only that, one, it was just an amazing time, but two, I think I lost a game to Jimmy Kelly, but he's also one of the best players in the world. And outside of that one game, I dropped 6 points in 5 rounds.
Well, Jimmy Kelly, hell of a guy. He won the ITC last year. We actually just chatted with him earlier this week. You should go check out episode 75. It's a really great episode. Less kill team and more life stuff. But so for y'all as a team to go down there and take the AVTT is a big accomplishment. And like I said, a couple days ago, I decided that I was going to sweat it out at Brandon's tournament this weekend. So Brandon's tournament, he does his monthly tournament. And if you go 3-0, you get a invite to his invitational coming up in August. And that actually has a golden ticket on the line. So I decided that I'm going for once in my life with 3 days prep, I'm going to actually sweat. So Shawn, you're here tonight to tell me how to play Plague Marines. So let's jump into them. So Shawn, I put out actually on Brandon's Discord, Kiddo Crew's Discord, I put out, I wanted to sweat. I love Rekkas. I think Rekkas are fun. I don't think Rekkas are a sweat team, unfortunately. And I threw out Angels of Death and Plague Marines, and people kicked around Angels of Death. You said Plague Marines, though, are the team for, as I put it for myself, the idiot. So why should I play Plague Marines? And why should everybody else play Plague Marines? What's great about this team?
There's a few really amazing reasons why I think Plague Marines. Now, I will say that Angels of Death are still a great team. They're just a lot harder because of a few simple differences. And one of the big ones is you have to play a lot safer. With Plague Marines, don't really have to play that safe. You can rely on the fact that Nurgle's got your back. And unless somebody's rocking a Melta, there's really not anything in this game that'll one-shot you. Outside of like a really, really lucky 5 dice P1 shot, you're just not going to die. You're super durable in that way. They're super consistent with the fact that they have severe on all of their guns when you take plague rounds, which you will every single game. And then their damage output is also really consistent because of poison. So you just move up the board as a slow moving wall of death, exactly as they are in the lore. And it is very, very, very difficult for anybody to remove you. And with that, you're just able to secure some amazing games, and you just have to worry about the 1 or 2 bad matchups that the team has.
Well, I'm one that's known to place a model in a bad spot, so that being durable and being consistent is going to be super helpful in me, especially with that feel no pain too. So let's talk about TAC Ops. So TAC Op selection, they can choose from security as well as seek and destroy. I'm pretty familiar with those from playing mostly Rekkas this edition, and there's a couple that I like for Rekkas. But what do you? So we got 6 of them. Let's just go through each one of them. So Shawn, let's start with like Storm objectives. What do you think about Plague Marines and Storm objectives?
So, and this goes into why I like to play this team and why they're consistent. Storm objectives, again, your goal is to move up the table as this wall of monstrosities. Normally, when you're deploying, you're going to be doing either a grouping of like 2 and 4 or 3 and 3. When you go 2-4 and the math is really reliable that you can get to their objective during turn 2, you're just going to move those 4 operatives onto their objective, basically. And when you do that, they are yours. You will control them. You will keep everybody off of them. And if they try to take them back from you, they're playing into your game and you're going to kill their models. So Storm Objectives is usually the one that I like to take when I'm being aggressive. But into teams like Nemesis Claw or anybody that has like a ton of damage output, it's really risky. Or models that just out-activate you. So you use it in these situations where it's like 8 model teams, Goremongers, Elves, Angels of Death even is really good because they don't have an icon. So you can just take it with 1 or 2 models. But you really don't want to weigh that risk when it's a team like Pyrotech Circle or any of the Horde team Sanctifiers, anything like that. You want to play it really slow and reserved. And that's why into the next 2 for Seek and Destroy, I don't recommend them because Champion, it's really hard for this team to get 2 kills unless you're playing against Hordes. And it's really going to be easy for the Horde team to play around you. So you don't want to try to go for Champion in those moments because you need those kills when you need them. You've only got 6 models. Your charge range is really short. So Champion, I just don't take. The same thing with Overrun. You're already making this huge risk when you're moving your models up the table. If you get a kill with one of them on the other side of the board, fantastic. Doing it again, if that model dies, really difficult. So Overrun is also a really big risk. Sometimes you'll get like 4 points on it, but getting 6 from it is really difficult. And that's just from my experience. I'm just some guy. And then my favorite are the security tac ops, and I'm assuming you have thoughts on those as well.
Yeah, security is kind of what I leaned into most of the time with Wrecker Crew, and most of my experience again is coming from Wrecker Crew. But I like to take Contain a lot. Honestly, Contain was what I played most of the time. I think I messed around with Take Ground and Secure Center just a little bit, but they're kind of they're smart tac ops. So, and I stay away from the smart ones. Contain's great because I just keep you away from me. So, but what do you think about Contain, Take Ground, and Secure Center as far as for the Plague Marines team?
With Contain, I like it as an option into only 2 teams. Both of them being really hard matchups for the Plague Marines, and that's going to be Nemesis Claw and Hierotech Circle. The main reason with Nemesis Claw, and it's one of those things you have to really think about, but then when you do, it becomes kind of obvious, is that they have a really hard time scoring points on their side of the board because they're running Infiltration and Seek and Destroy as their tac ops. They also have things like Return to Darkness and their Midnight Clad, or Return to Darkness is a strat play that they have for anybody who hasn't played Nemesis Claw. At the beginning of every turn, they can just run away with their most important model. And then Midnight Clad is if you're outside of 6 of them and they're within an inch of heavy terrain or underneath a vantage, they're just obscured. So it really becomes difficult to play the shot game long distance against Nemesis Claw, and then they're threatening with a Melta the entire time. So you have to play very far back against Nemesis Claw and Hierotech Circle because they can get in your face and do a ton of damage really fast. So Contain sort of forces them to do it. And then your entire game plan from that point is when they cross that side of the table to try and kill you, your job is to put everything you have into that one model and then make them do it again. And sure, you might not max out your tac op, but you're probably going to table them or get very close to it because it's twice as difficult for those teams to kill you. But otherwise, into any other team, if they out-activate you especially, do not take Contain because they're just going to assume that you're taking it, or you get a cheeky 2 points on turn 2, and then you're never going to get any points from it again because they're just going to take a model and run it within 6 of your drop zone and then sit there, and you are not going to be able to catch them. So you have to really think about how that team approaches it. Nemesis Claw, they don't have the models to sacrifice for that. Higher tech circle are really slow. So those are the places where you can kind of flex those abilities.
I, f-
Otherwise, go ahead.
I feel like my experience with against Plague Marines is I feel like they do reveal contain a lot because there's been quite a few games where it was Rekka versus Plague Marines and I was revealing contain, they were revealing contain, but it makes a lot of sense what you say about how like you're a slow team, you're going to move up the board. The teams that are going to kind of come at you, or in the specific teams, Nemesis, Cloud, Higher Tech Circle, are the ones that you would play it against and just kind of kill them as they come up. So, what about Take Ground?
Take ground for me is one of my favorites if the map allows it. So if you're looking at Into the Dark, you're looking at where those doors are. If there's doors on the center line that you can get easily, or two doors, like one slightly over the center line, one on the center line, that's what you're going is take ground, because then one model just sits there and then everybody else backs that person up. If there's a stronghold that's even slightly over the line, or there's two sets of ruins, you take ground. It's just really, really easy for us to get 2 or 3 models into these positions and bunker, because that's the way Plague Marines play. You get a lot of your kills on enemy turns. When we have to move far, we lose ceaseless. So you want people to come at you, and you want to sit there and force them to constantly take these shots, and then nothing happens, and you still score your points. But take ground is absolutely my favorite. It's just super map dependent. If you have to overcommit and you can't make that distance on turn 2, then take ground is usually not an option, and you default to secure center.
So let's go through Secure Center a little bit. Anything, any kind of niche nuance to playing this with them?
No, that's my favorite part about secure center. You are going to be a full-on idiot.
I like
You're
that.
going to go icon bearer, sits on the center line on one of the flanks. Try to keep them safe if you can, because you want to make people, and this is always going to be the case with your icon bearer, is if somebody goes to take a shot, they need to be within 2, because you're hiding on conceal. If they do that, they're hitting worse because of contagion, because his contagion, it doesn't matter if they're poisoned or not. If you're within 3 of the icon bearer, you are injured. So you make them get close to you, you sit there and you score your points. And then because the icon lives, you get free contagion every turn. So secure center is great for that model. Usually you have to do it on the other side of the board just to make sure you have enough APL. And then otherwise, everybody else is just sitting on the center. And your entire game plan is, I'm going to protect my home objective, and I'm going to have the center objective. And then we're just going to play 20 to 11 or 20 to 12 game.
So it sounds like we're looking mostly at security, and seek and destroy is not really. You said so. Storm objectives on a team with 8 models, like or elves or goremongers, angels of death. But most of the time, it sounds like it's going to be take ground and secure center. So um, that works out for me because they stand around and not have to worry about doing stuff. Just come fight me.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If you were afraid that you were going to be overextending yourself, then you go for take ground or secure center. If you know that you can pressure them and push into their team, or if they can't out-activate you, storm objectives and contain are really decent. If they're even some horde teams, it's possible, but I wouldn't take the risk on contain. Like into rattlings, they don't want to move to your side of the table, but once they know you have contain, they're just going to throw somebody over there.
Yeah, it seems like you easily get one model up there to break that contain, which is super annoying, especially if you've only got 6 models. So chasing somebody down on the edge of the map might be an issue.
Yeah, especially the team does not want to spread out.
All right, so we've got our attack op selection figured out, probably something from security. What about strat ploys? So we've got contagion, which you mentioned a little bit, cloud of flies, lumbering death, and nurgling. So talk about contagion. When are we popping contagion to get that aura?
Contagion's pretty simple. There's one use case where you're going to pop it on turn 1, and that's against goremongers, because if you give them a kill, and this is like high level, in my opinion, high level strategy stuff, you kind of feint that you're giving somebody a shot or a melee or a charge, but you also have done the math in your head that they're not going to be able to kill you. So if you're playing around that, you play contagion on turn 1. Otherwise, you're going to use it on turns 2 through 4 pretty consistently. You really want to be reserved with your CP. This is a team that wants to go second on turn 2, because you don't want to try to go for the free contagion on your icon on turn 2 unless you're super, super confident. That's just too far up the board. You want to keep your guys usually around like 3 inches away from each other at all times and just kind of move in waves. But contagion, if for anybody that doesn't know, is that if you are in control range of any one of the Plague Marine operatives, you are injured for your ballistic skill and your movement. It is not injury, so if you have any ignore injury modifiers, it still goes through. You have to completely be able to ignore stat modifiers to ignore this ability. And then otherwise, if you're within 3 inches of the icon bearer ever, or if you're within 3 inches of any other Plague Marine operative while you have a poison token, you're injured.
And then let's look at Lumbering Death. So, real quick, Lumbering Death, whenever a friendly Plague Marine operative is shooting or fighting during an activation in which it hasn't moved more than 3 inches, or whenever it's retaliating, its weapons have ceaseless.
So this one is your bread and butter. You're using this turns 2 through 4 always. Just try to really remember, I've seen a lot of Plague Marine players think that you get this on a counteract or while you're on guard. Those are the 2 situations you do not get this. Otherwise, you're good to go. So if you think that you can't get somebody with a charge or you're worried about a charge, sometimes it's better just to charge and pass. Because if they fight into you, then you're going to get them. And if they try to run away, they're injured. So they're only moving 4 inches and you'll be able to charge them later. But Lumbering Death is very clutch. It works on all of their shooting attacks, all of their melees during their activation. So that means even grenades are affected by it. And just having ceaseless whenever you want is really, really powerful.
So that's turns 2 through 4, sounds like. And I like that you pointed out that it is only during your activation or on a retaliation. So it doesn't work on a guard shot or a counteract. So something to remember, too, if you're playing against Plague Marines.
Yes.
Cloud of Flies. So Cloud of Flies is basically Plague Marine's smoke grenade, right?
Yes. Now, it doesn't ignore piercing modifiers. So it can be dangerous if somebody goes at you with a piercing shot and they're okay with it being obscured. It can still do a lot of damage. But it is just a clutch way to go, okay, either I have an operative who's in a shot position and I've lost initiative, Cloud of Flies. Especially if they can't get close enough to ignore it. They have to be within 3 inches of whoever is affected by it to ignore the obscuring. So you can place it anywhere on the map. You can cover your operatives with it. One of the tricky things I like to do if I have initiative is if I know that I can make a charge fight and shoot, I'll put it where I'm charging because the Plague Marines aren't affected by it. They can shoot through this without any penalties. So it really just helps them stay sturdy for the counterattack. But play it sparingly because you're going to need that initiative, or you're going to need that CP, sorry. But when it comes up, it really, really can make or break a game.
So now are you saying that you'll drop it someplace that you know you're going to, say, charge into? So you can drop it someplace like on a enemy potentially, the charge into them, fight them, kill them, and then be able to shoot out of it?
Yep.
Cool.
You can also just drop it onto an enemy and they'll be obscured as well. So you can play it pretty flexible. But like if you're on Into the Dark and you know you're going to move into a room and go on guard soon into the turn, put a Cloud of Flies there. Make it really hard for somebody to shoot you back.
And Cloud of Flies doesn't take any kind. You can drop it anywhere on the kill zone. You don't even have to worry about like any visibility or 6 inches or anything like you do a smoke. That's nice.
Yep. You just get some help.
All right. So Nurglings. Nurglings messed me up as a Rekka player. So select one enemy operative within 3 inches of a friendly Plague Marine operative, or one enemy operative that has one of your poison tokens and is within 7 inches of a friendly Plague Marine. Until the end of selected operative's next activation, subtract 1 from its APL. So you get a mid-round stun, it looks like.
Yes, and it doesn't have to be visible either. So you can get up against a stronghold wall on somebody and poison them on the other side. Stun them on the other side. And if you know somebody has the ability to do damage to you, like a Space Marine, and they have to charge first, now you've just taken away the double fight, which is their biggest strength. or the double shoot if they have to move and shoot to get it within range of your cloud of flies. It can really make or break a lot of teams, and it just very much helps the idea of, I don't want to die. You get one shot at me. It might do 8 damage max. I'm going to heal myself, and then I'm going to come and kill you.
Yeah. Being able to just place it wherever you want, well, within 3 or 7. So that's really nice. I like that, setting yourself up to move into a room. If you know you're gonna turn somebody off or take some APL from someone to shut them down a little bit. And plus, if, like I said, if you're playing against Wreck-It Crew, just it screws them, especially on Into the Dark.
Yes. Speaking of that, for AVTT, my first round, I felt bad. Great player. She was wonderful, but at AVTT, the way it worked was you rolled off for initiative. Then each team defends a map. There was a narrative map, an Into the Dark map, and an open map, which was such a fun format. And then they pick which map they're defending, but not who's defending it. Then we reveal who is defending each map at the same time. They picked the Into the Dark map. We picked the open, and they chose Wreck-It Crew to defend that map on Into the Dark. And we chose Sanctifiers on open. And then from that point, the Wreck-It Crew player got to choose between Blooded or Plague Marines, and they chose to play against me. And that was one of the most one-sided games of the entire tournament, just because of that. It was bad. Plague Marines love sitting on Into the Dark, and using Nurglings and abusing Vision basically makes it so that Wreck-It Crew can't do anything.
Yeah, when we played at the last tournament, the Memorial Day tournament, I played against Emily and her Plague Marines, and she just kept putting Nurglings on my Demolisher, and he kept like running into someone and then just standing there because he couldn't do anything, and then she'd just run away from me. It
Yep.
was super frustrating. So yeah, if you're playing against Wreck-It Crew, stuns and Nurglings are a great stun. So
Yeah, sounds like we're ready to go into firefight ploys, though.
yeah, so let's go to the first. Let's see, what do we got? We got Curse of Rot. So Curse of Rot uses firefight play when a friendly Plague Marine operative is fighting against, shooting against an enemy within 3 or 7 if it's poison. After your opponent rolls their attack or defense dice, for each result of 3 they roll, inflict 1 damage on enemy, and that result cannot be retained as a success, and they cannot re-roll it.
Yeah, basically this only comes up when you're shooting. I've never felt in a situation where I needed this in melee, but you're essentially turning your guns into piercing weapons when you shoot somebody and they roll 3s. It's extremely deadly. I've one-shot a Nemesis Claw operative with this before. They were already poisoned at full health. I shot with my warrior, so his weapons become 4-5 damage instead of 3-4 when he's shooting a poisoned operative. And they had cover and rolled 2 3s. So I used Curse of Rot on the 3s, brought him down to 13 health, and then he blocked the 1, which means that he took 13 damage.
So you're just the 2 3s that he rolled, you're just getting rid of those dice, and he's taking 1 damage each on them, and then also like can't block anything.
Right. The only time that you can get around it is if you roll a natural fail, and I rot 1-3, and you have purity seals. You can discard the rotted 3 and then turn the fail into a normal. Otherwise, you can't do anything with those dice. You can't modify them.
All right. Sounds pretty situational, but also when you need to pull it out, it's going to make or break like a firefight potentially, especially on somebody who's rolling, like who's looking for 3s, like a Marine player or something.
Yeah, and most of the time it doesn't come up in melee because there's barely any operatives that hit on 2s, and then the only time you'd be using it in that scenario is to mess with their breakpoints, so you lower their health. Like if you see 3 3s on a melee, use it, because at least it does 3 damage right there, and that can make the fight swing in your favor. But your CP is really special and you need it, so it's very situational. But when it does come up, it can pretty much win a fight that you're making, or a shot that you're making. Just remember that if they are fighting or shooting you, it does not work.
Okay. So let's say you didn't win a fight. Your operative is being incapacitated, and you have poisonous demise. So use this firefight play when a friendly plague marine operative is incapacitated. Before it's removed from the kill zone, each enemy operative visible and within 3 inches gains one of your poison tokens if they don't have one. If they do have one, you inflict 1 damage on them.
Yeah, so this one is super situational. The general rule of thumb I have with this is if it's not going to hit 2 or more targets, and I mean, most of the time it's got to be 3 targets for me. If it's not going to hit that many people, it's not worth playing. But it's a great way to sacrifice somebody like your fighter because the fighter doesn't have any shooting. So you can go in with the fighter, charge into 2 to 3 people's range because his flail ability is 2 inches. So if you can get the flail off into that many targets and then he loses the fight somehow, or he wins the fight and then loses the second fight, then Poisonous Demise is fantastic to just spread out more poison.
Now, I don't think we haven't really touched on what poison actually does, have we?
No, we haven't. So poison is the bread and butter for Plague Marines. It makes the difference for everything that they do and creates some hilarious moments. Most of their guns and melee abilities have poison on them. When one of those abilities that has them does damage to you, you get a poison token. The poison token is applied immediately, but it normally doesn't matter in those situations. But it is 1 damage when you activate, unless they have the equipment plague events, then it's D3 damage if you're within 3 of one of the plague marines when you activate. The other mechanic that it cares about is contagion. So when you have a poison token and you're within 3 of anybody that's not the icon bearer, you're injured. So you want to try and get as many people poisoned as possible. It makes everything better. It also creates some hilarious moments into 8 health operative teams where you shoot them, and because you have severe on your bolt weapons, you push through a crit and a hit, it takes 7 damage, and then they're poisoned. And then they just die when they activate.
So it sounds like poison's pretty important. Is it something where, and we'll get to kind of the weapons and stuff in a little bit, but is it something where you're really looking to make sure you're applying poison as much as possible, even just to kind of get that token on them to make your other stuff work or makes other stuff better, or even just like chip damage?
Most of the time, it's just going to be chip damage. The only time where you really want to make sure it's on as many people as possible is if you know that they're going to try to get within 2 of you and shoot you, because then that affects the contagion. But otherwise, it's just a great damage modifier. Spreading it around into teams like elites and things like that is great because it makes your warrior better, it makes the bombardier better, and it makes your champion better. Otherwise, it's just a great chit mechanic.
So, and while we're touching on faction rules, which is what poison is, they also have we mentioned a little bit disgustingly resilient. So, whenever an attack dice inflicts 3 or more on a friendly plague marine operative, roll a d6 on a 4+. You subtract 1 from that inflicted damage. So, a little bit of damage mitigation to make them a bit tougher.
Yes, and that goes right into the next firefight play too, which is sickening resilience. So what happens is the first time that you take damage during an activation, you can play Sickening Resilience, and it makes you automatically pass those Feel No Pain rolls for Disgustingly Resilient for the entire activation. So into elites, this means that if they shoot you once, it covers both shots.
So you're spending 1 CP, but you're knocking off 1 wound on everything until the end of the turning point, or until the end of that activation. So even if it's on
Correct.
the opposing player's activation, so say he activates with a Space Marine and shoots you, you could pop Sickening Resilience and -1 damage on everything, and then he shoots you again because they're going to double shoot, and you still have that -1 damage because it's still his activation, right?
Right, and that just into almost every elite, that just turns their bolt guns into las guns right there.
Well, we know how effective those flashlights can be. So let's see, and then so finally we have, for the firefight plays, we have Virulent Poison. So uses firefight ploy during a friendly plague marine operative's activation or counteraction. Before or after it performs an action, select one of the following. One enemy with operative within 3 inches gains a poison token if it doesn't have one, and or roll 2d6 and the result is 7 plus. One enemy operative within 7 inches gains a poison token.
Yeah, so this is really almost every single time when I'm using this, it's because my champion is going into somebody and I want to heal and do a lot of damage on the fight because the champion has toxic on his melee weapons. So instead of having a 4 or 5 melee, he goes up to 5, 6, which is amazing. And then he is also able to heal himself. But most of the time when I'm using it, it's because a team out activates me and I want to try to kill a model immediately with my plague caster, because if you move up and you're within 7, the plague caster can use its ability called miasma, which is if you're within 7 and visible to the plague caster, he gives you a poison token. If you already have a poison token, you take 3 damage. Otherwise, it's infinite range, but you need to be a valid target. So the plague caster is able to move up, risk the CP roll if you're playing cocky. If they get the poison, fantastic. You do 3 more damage, or you do 3 damage onto them. Then during a counteract, you do 3 more damage. And you can do all of that on conceal.
So it's some pretty solid chip damage there, right? You can plug 6 damage into someone and still be hidden.
Yeah, and if they're a 7 operative team or 7 wound team, that just kills them because when they activate, they're going to take 1 more damage from poison.
Yeah, because with poison, activate, they take a damage, and yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I think the only team right now that can avoid that on death poison is the new Battleclade, because they can remove the poison token before they activate. But otherwise, the recent FAQ has said that damage from activation abilities comes first. So if you're at 1 wound and you're poisoned, you're dead.
Okay. So like you've been saying though, poison, pass around the poison. Poison seems to it extends ranges on stuff too. So
I know it doesn't extend anybody's range, but it just makes you a lot more it allows contagion to work outside of control range for everybody except your icon, because the icon has it all the time. But a lot of your playstyle with this team is you're going to be moving up on conceal. So people need to get within 2 of you, or you're going to be using smoke grenades. So they need to get within 2 of you to shoot you. And that's where, if they're already poisoned, fantastic contagion kicks in when they go for that shot.
well, you mentioned smoke grenades. Let's jump into equipment. So there's, with all teams, you got the 4 faction equipment. So the starting off with the plague rounds. So friendly plague marine operatives, bolt guns and bolt pistols have the poison severe weapon rules.
Yeah, it's so good. Imagine just a double shooting space marine that always has a crit on every single shot. It's so good. And then poison as well, to where into certain teams, let's say they're 8 health and you score 7 damage because of the severe rule, and then you poison them. Then you're going to select a second target instead of shooting them again. And now you've potentially just gotten 2 kills without trying, and you still get counteracts because they get to activate.
So it sounds like that's a always take plague bells, or excuse
Yep.
me, not plague rounds. So
Yeah, both actually.
So plague bells, let's go into those. You can ignore any changes to the stats of friendly plague marine operatives from being injured. So you're going to ignore -1 to hit, and you're going to ignore the 2-inch movement.
Yeah, the only times that it'll come up that you're going to be slow is if you're in the mirror match, or the nanomine, things like that from our tech circle. Otherwise, you just kind of play with the stats on your card, which makes it a lot easier for newer players because you just memorize what you have. Some people have 5 dice. Most of them have 4. It's always on 3s, 3, 4 damage, severe, and poison. And that is pretty much the entire team.
Now, what about poison vents? So we've talked a lot about poison. So whenever an enemy operative that has one of your poison tokens is activated within 3 inches of a friendly plague marine, you inflict D3 instead of the normal 1 damage. Or is this something we're taking often?
Not often. If you're going into an elite matchup and something like a smoke grenade isn't useful, or you don't have a reason to take ladders or barricades, or you just have an equipment slot and you don't want to reposition up the board, which is usually what I do. I don't like to reposition. Then I'll take the plague vents, and if they try to get close and they're poisoned, I mentioned a couple of times already is kind of our game plan, then now they're going to take more damage when they activate.
So we're thinking like Into the Dark against Phobos with this, something who can ignore obscuring because the smoke's not going to do
No,
anything.
yeah, that would be one of those scenarios where you don't take this because they'll just shoot you from long range and they won't care about your smoke grenades. But then, like a team like Angels of Death or Nemesis Claw or Legionaries, they have to get close, and being able to chip off a few wounds is really great. Another team that is great for is Hyrotech Circle because they can't run away as well. So they're going to have to be up close and personal with you. And being able to just chip some damage away from their 10 health makes it a lot easier to kill them in shooting.
All right, and then for the last faction equipment, we have blight grenades. So friendly Plague Marine operatives have the following range weapon. You can't use it more than twice. Blight grenade, 4 attacks on 4s, 2/4 damage, range 6, blast 2, saturate severe poison.
See, now this is one that I think gets overlooked a lot. The synergy with the Bombardier is also overlooked, but blight grenades are just an amazing way to chip and do poison to hordes. Because they have severe on them, it's really easy to make sure that you have a crit with these. On Into the Dark, you're going to have lethal 5s and severe, so there's a good chance you're going to have a crit. Well, you're going to have a crit on every single shot with these. And being able to pass around poisons like that is a game changer because the Bombardier has the exact same grenades in an infinite number, but his hit on 3s, and if you're already poisoned, they do 3/5 damage instead of 2/4.
It's a pretty stout grenade if you're poisoned.
Oh yeah,
I mean, what a crack grenade's only 4/5, right? So
exactly. Yeah, and cracks, I'd rather hit on 3s.
yeah. So that's the Plague Marine faction equipment. So it sounds like Plague Bells always, Plague Rounds always, Poison Vents maybe, and then Blight Grenades pretty regularly.
I would say situational for blight grenades. It almost always it's going to be hordes because you need to make sure that that grenade hits 2 to 3 targets, or else it's not worth throwing. It's better just to shoot somebody with one of your bolt weapons.
Okay, so Blight Grenades into hordes then.
Yeah, that's usually my general strategy.
So what about like the just generic equipment? So
For me, it's going to be barricades are used pretty often, depending on if they can get a vantage shot or not. On Into the Dark, if they don't have Seek Light, then barricades are going to be fantastic. Ladders, home a lot taken. Depends on how you want to move around the map. If it seems like it's going to take you forever to get somewhere, then ladders come in clutch. But you also don't really want to go up on vantages too often because of the whole lumbering death rule. You want to try and move just slow and methodical up the board, staying your objectives. Smokes, I take a lot. If you don't ignore obscuring and you have any shooting at all, I'm taking smokes and I'm standing there and baiting you to shoot me. And then stuns, I take into elites a lot of the time, and goremongers as well, or even hordes. If you can hit 2 targets with a stun grenade or just a marine with a stun grenade, it's really amazing. But it is a risk, so my lean is almost always going to be barricades and smokes.
okay. I like barricades. I like smokes. I don't use barricades as much as I do in this edition. I feel like in last edition we had to place barricades, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, so I find myself I feel like I did more harm than good with my barricades most of the time, so I've stayed away from them. But I guess I'm gonna have to like figure them out a little bit for Plague Marines.
yeah. Plague Marines even use the heavy barricade, especially into teams that have like Seek Light or there's bad vantage shots, and you just want to sit back with your plague caster. Being able to control the fact that you can be obscured just by stepping a little bit away from the heavy barricade is amazing. I don't think I've ever used the portable barricade with this team though, because moving 3 inches sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, 3 inches is a nightmare. I know. So let's talk about operatives a little bit. Um, so the operative stat line, just the basic stat line, 3 APL, 5-inch move, saving on 3s. The champion has 15 wounds. Everybody else has 14 wounds. So pretty much the normal Space Marine chassis.
A little slower.
A little bit slower, but they, saving on threes is really good. They got a lot of wounds. Having
And they have the
APL is great.
Astartes rule.
And they have the Astartes rule. Yeah, that's another faction rule where they can counteract on conceal. Um, and that's being able to, especially since you're a 6 operative team, being able to counteract and get a little bit more movement, especially because you're only a 5-inch move too. It's probably
Yep.
very helpful. Is that something where you find yourself positioning yourself knowing that, hey, I'm going to get a counteract with this guy and I want to move him 2 more inches?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I know where all of my counteracts are going. Usually, especially in turn 1, I know exactly who's counteracting and when, and I'm positioning around it. And then being able to shoot and fight twice is also super, super important. But I think one of the techs into anybody that wants to play elites is knowing how to use and abuse counteracts as much as possible.
So let's talk about operatives. So Plague Marine Champion. So this is our leader. He's got a plasma pistol, 4 attacks on threes, 3/5, range 8, piercing 1, or he can supercharge it, 4 attacks on threes, 4/5, range 8, dumb hot rule, lethal 5, piercing 1, and he's got a plague sword for melee, 5 attacks on threes, 4/5, severe poison and toxic. So tell me about our champion.
Champion is an awesome model. He is definitely not as game defining as you would think, just because he can't double shoot. So what I like to do with him is you're always going to shoot hot with his weapon because you're going to ignore injuries. So the worst you can take from his hot roll is 4 damage. And then it leads into his special rule, which I believe is Blessings of the Grandfather, or Grandfather's Blessing. So whenever an enemy that has one of your poison tokens loses 1 or more wounds within 7 of this operative regains up to an equal number of lost wounds. So that's usually 1 dice, and it's a maximum of 3 wounds lost during the turning point. So if he's taken damage from his hot roll, and then you plan on charging and fighting, you're going to heal that up. He's really tough.
So real quick weird rule question. So if you say you charge someone with your plague sword, you hit them, you apply poison right away,
Vid?
and then the next time, the next time you hit them again, you get a wound back.
Yeah, so the way it would work in a sequence like that is if I charged and fought with the plague sword, the first swing will apply the poison, then you hit me back. The second swing is going to heal me 3 damage because it's each wound. It's not each dice heals a wound. So because I'm going to be doing 4 or 5, I won't get the toxic rule that adds 1/1 to my weapon stats, but wounds are not stats, so you can heal from this mid-sequence.
I was looking at that wrong. I thought it was 1 per dice, but it's up to 3, right?
Yep, and it's because it applies with other operatives. So if somebody has one of the poison tokens and is within 7 of him, and they activate and lose a wound, he heals.
Okay, so this is champions moving up front.
Yeah, he's usually your wave 1 operative. He's your, when I like to group the team, the way I think about it is fighters, blast, and shooting. He's in your fighter group, so you never want to put him next to your fighter. You want to kind of split the board where he goes one way, the fighter goes the other.
So champion goes one way, fighter goes the other way.
Yep.
Okay. Plague Marine Bombardier. So Bombardier has a bolt gun, 4 attacks on threes, 3/4, but we're giving it plague rounds, right? So
That's all poison and severe.
Poison severe. He's also got fists, 4 attacks on threes, 3/4. He's a grenadier, so he can use blight and crack grenades, and they don't count towards any limited uses. And he, like we talked about, he hits on 1 better with them. So, and his grenades have the toxic weapon rule. Toxic, whenever this operative is using a weapon against an enemy operative that has one of your poison tokens, add 1 damage to both stats of this weapon.
Yeah, and that'll only apply to the blight grenades themselves. I wish it applied to the cracks. That'd be amazing. But yeah, that's his job. Is he's your piercing shot. You try not to put him in a fight situation against operatives that can outfight him, but into 8 health or less operatives, he can fight really well, especially if his goal is parrying out. But usually he's going to run up within 6 and throw a crack grenade at somebody or double shoot them from long range.
Literally.
So since because he's got a bolt gun, it's a bolt weapon, so he can double shoot. So could shoot a crack or throw a crack grenade and shoot the bolt gun still too, right? With that Astartes rule.
Yeah, exactly. What I like to do with that Astartes rule is throw a crack, shoot, if I need to finish them off.
Cool. Plague Marine Fighter, Flail of Corruption, 5 attacks hitting on 3s, 4/5, brutal, severe shock, poison. He also has the Flail ability, so for 1 AP, he can inflict D3 plus 2 damage on each operative that's both visible and within 2 inches of him. Roll separately for each enemy operative. The results of 3, they also gain a poison token if they don't have one. And you can't do it if you're on Conceal or if you've already fought more than once.
Yeah, so it basically counts as one of his fight actions, but it is a great way to do some chip damage, especially if you're able to get a double or triple charge off. And you don't even need to get the double charge off. It has a 2-inch range. So often people will try to space to where you can't double charge them. But if you can angle his charge to get within 2 inches of somebody else, flail away.
So is this something where you got 3 APL, say you can get a charge off into someone, you're going to go in and flail, hoping that you get if they don't have one already, 1, you get chip damage, but 2, you also get a poison token to then fight with the flail, so now they're poisoned, so you're hitting better? Or you're hitting harder?
The flail doesn't get affected by his poison tokens at all, which sucks. But with this operative, you really want to try to hide in melee as much as you can because nobody wants to fight you back. So that's why I like to charge in flail and then fight if I can. But it's also great if you plan on charge and passing to just go for the flail.
Gotcha, because you're not doing a fight action. You're just walking in and whirling around and hitting them. They don't get to hit you back.
Exactly. And you can also use that ability on a counteract. So if your goal is to charge in and pass, you definitely flail. Just remember when it comes up, it is visible and within 2 inches. It has no consideration about control range. So that's not going to work on certain hatchway fights, and it's not going to work through strongholds.
Okay. And you cannot be on Conceal, so you can't, if somebody charges you, you can't do it unless you flip to engage.
Right. And that it's going to be pretty rare that somebody charges you, so it shouldn't be something that'll come up.
Okay. Plague Marine Heavy Gunner. Now this boy's got the Plague Spewer, 5 attacks on 2s, 3/3, range 7, saturate, severe, torrent, poison, and then he's got fists as well too.
Yeah, and the Torrent 2 could come in clutch against Hordes, but that's what this operative is for. Especially being 5 on 2 with Saturate. If you're a 7 health or less team and you have 2 operatives that I can Torrent with it, they're probably both going to die every single time. And worst case, you block it all and take 6 damage. Guess what? You're still dead because you're poisoned.
So when are we taking the Heavy Gunner? This is just into Hordes on Into the Dark?
You would think Into the Dark would come up, but because he's range 7, it is really easy to out threat range him unless you use some cheeky positioning to force somebody into a room to fight him. It's almost always going to be Hordes that you use this operative, but on Into the Dark, he can come in very clutch. And even though it says 3/3 on his damage profile, he does a lot of damage. Because it's with Lumbering Death, it won't work on guard, but when he has Lumbering Death up, it's basically reroll 1s.
So, and then Lumbering Death, just to review again, Lumbering Death is balanced or ceaseless on if he hasn't moved more than 3.
Right.
So you're hitting on 2s, you're rerolling 1s.
And you have Severe and Saturate. And you're going to do a lot of damage.
So you're going to get a crit. You're going to get, so Saturate, it's going to ignore any light terrain.
They won't get any cover saves.
No cover saves, excuse me. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty gross.
Yeah. His average damage is 9.
Nice. Okay, so on to the Plague Marine Icon Bearer. Now, this is another one we've talked about quite a bit. He's got a bolt pistol, 4 attacks on 3s, 3/4, range 8. And a Plague Knife. His Plague Knife does actually 5 attacks on 3s, 3, 4 severe and poison. He's an icon bearer, so whenever determining control, treat him
And
as
I
plus
don't
1
get
APL stats is 1 higher. It's not cumulative. And he's an icon of contagion, so whenever this operative is within your opponent's territory, you get the contagion play for 0 CP.
Yeah, and that's basically his job. His Plague Knife, while it doesn't have a high damage profile, it still can kill anything that's 8 wounds or less with ease. He's really good at parrying out when you have 5 dice with Ceaseless on a Retaliate. And then his bolt gun or his bolt pistol is nothing to scoff at, because most of the time with this operative, they're going to be close to you anyways, because you're forcing them to come at him. His job is to move up, control space on conceal, set up for Icon of Contagion, so that way he gets the Contagion strategy play for 0 CP, and that's if you're just even 1 millimeter over the center line, you get that. And you want people to come at you, try and kill you, fail, and then you kill them back.
So is he going to be kind of standing in the middle of the board most of the time? Is he kind of a frontline guy? Sounds like, because you want to get him over to your opponent's territory to get the Icon of Contagion going.
Yes, he's a frontline guy, while also being a little bit reserved. You do not want to throw him away. You want him to be like the second wave or the first and a half. He's not the first guy to cross the line, but he's definitely within the first 2.
Okay, so move him up, but kind of cagey. But
yeah, you want to keep him alive as long as you possibly can, just to get out some CP, because you want to try and go first on turn 3 if you can. That'll almost always seal the game for you. And if he's in position to do Contagion for free, that means that you can spend 1 CP on Lumbering Death, play Contagion for free, and then you can do Cloud of Flies or Nurglings and just go. And if you don't need Cloud of Flies or Nurglings, you've got so much CP to spare.
Malignant Plague Caster. Entropy. So he's got a couple different ranged attacks, plus he's also got some psychic stuff, so other psychic stuff too. So Entropy, 4 attacks on 3s, 3/7 damage, psychic action, psychic attack, range 7, saturate, severe poison. We've got Plague Wind, 6 attacks on 3s, 2/3, saturate, severe, torrent 1, poison. He's also got a corrupted staff for melee, which is a psychic weapon too. 4 attacks on 3s, 3/4, severe, shock, stun, poison. And then he's got some, I think you spoke about this earlier, he's got some psychic abilities for 1 AP too. So you want to talk about the Plaguecaster?
Yeah, the Plaguecaster is the real leader of this team. He is going to be doing most of the heavy lifting, and is the scariest operative for any of your opponents. Specifically, his shooting, it is no joke. The Plague Wind, even though it's 2/3 damage, it's still 6 attacks with Saturate, Severe, and Torrent. I had a game at AVTT against some Nemesis Claw. It was one of the narrative boards, and we picked that one for me as the elite player because it had really few places to deploy. It felt like an old school board. The Nemesis Claw player I knew would have the same situation, and there was a spot on the far left of my side, far right of his side of the board, where if he deployed an operative there, he was not going to be in cover at the beginning of the game. So of course, I positioned my Plaguecaster in a spot where he could take an obscured shot at this character. I thought that he would take the reposition ploy to move up the board to be safe, but he just underestimated that I would actually go for it. And when you're shooting 6 dice on 3s with Ceaseless, because I paid for that on turn 1, hoping that he would let me go first, I was able to do 8 damage to a Nemesis Claw operative, and then because it has poison, I can use Poisonous Miasma, his psychic ability, which if you are a valid target, doesn't matter if you're obscured, from any range, he can do 3 damage to you if you're already poisoned. So I was able to push through 11 damage into his Fearmonger before the game even started, and then stand behind a wall to where I couldn't be shot back.
That's pretty gross. So you started off with Plague Wind, then you said? So
yep, because Entropy has a 7-inch range,
yeah.
Most of the time that's not going to be the one that's used. His abilities all have Psychic, so if you double shoot with this character, you have to use both profiles. You can't use the same one twice. But if you see an obscured shot with Plague Wind, you take it. It's 6 dice.
So you take the plague wind shot, you land a couple hits and get poisoned, and then you can do the poisonous miasma.
Yep.
Because he was
Poisoned from the Plague Wind.
okay. All
Yeah.
right.
It's really annoying. Otherwise, you're using this character on Conceal, like I explained, against like a 7 or 8 health team. You can move up onto like Advantage or something, get within 7 of someone, because it doesn't matter if they're a valid target if you're within 7. Roll the dice on Virulent Poison to give them a poison token. And I don't know if you've ever done the math on 2d6, but 7 or higher is a 50% chance. So it's worth the risk. If you poison them, you do 3 damage. And then when you counteract, you do 3 more damage. It's worth it. And then his bread, like, it changes the course of the game. And this is what you're going to be playing around. You're going to be positioning around. You're going to be playing ballsy with, is his last action, which is Putrescent Vitality. Select one friendly operative visible to and within 3, and then roll 2d6. If the result is exactly 7, they heal for 7. Otherwise, they heal the greater of the 2d6s. I've had it happen where I've only healed 2 wounds before, but the averages for this heal is 4 or higher. And when you're healing a Space Marine that already reduces damage and is playing around obscuring, it is really, really, really easy to stay alive.
So Malignant Playcaster, are we, as far as like positioning, and we can go more about like the whole game strategy in just a minute, but is this guy somebody who's like moving up kind of like the icon is, and that second wave, so he can be within 7 and be up to heal people?
Yeah, you want him to be within 3 of your operatives who are in the front lines, because that's the entire math that you're playing around. Is they can't kill you in one shot, so they're going to go up, they're going to take that shot, you're going to take some damage, and then the Plague Caster is going to walk up right behind them and heal it. And they've done nothing, and they've wasted an operative.
Okay. The last one we have is the Plague Marine Warrior. Bolt Gun, 4 attacks on 3s, 3/4. This guy has Toxic on his Bolt Gun. Plague Knife, 4 attacks on 3s, 3/4, Severe and Poison. He's also got Repulsive Fortitude. So whenever an operative is shooting this operative, defense dice of 5 plus are critical successes. So you crit on 5s. And then he's also got Toxic on the Bolt Gun too. So
Yeah,
add 1 damage to if he's shooting someone who's poisoned.
he is your Space Marine killer, big time. If you double shoot into a Space Marine, you're probably going to kill them with this character, or get them so low that it doesn't matter anymore if they're in the game. And then he can eat shots back because of the 5-up crit save. It really comes in clutch. Always remember the 5-up crit save.
So is this going to be more slow moving up, like kind of hanging out back line, taking long shots with the bolt gun?
Yeah, I would say that because we've covered everybody, the big thing you want to try to do with this team is your champion and your fighter are usually going to be your front wave, or your champion, fighter, and icon bearer. And then the warrior, the bombardier, and the plague caster are usually right behind them or nearby. The plague caster is the only one that really needs to be close if you plan on healing. Otherwise, you're just kind of like making a second wave, protecting the board, and moving up as a group like that. 3-on-1, like if you're, like I described earlier, if you're doing 3-3, that's how you do it. Your fighter, your icon bearer, and your champion are spread out and moving up the board. Your plague caster is usually behind your icon bearer to heal them, or your champion. And then the bombardier is backing up the warrior, or the bombardier and the warrior are backing up the fighter. Because often people will try to just take a shot at the fighter. They don't want to fight him. And then you just move out with either the bombardier or the warrior, and they have full range shooting, so they'll just shoot them back twice.
So what's your kind of just, so your main strategy, it sounds like, basically is you've got a couple waves, and are you playing cagey with these guys, or are you just using all that 5-inch move that you have to take advantage of it as much as you can? And with that's those staggered waves you're talking about, or what's your play style to take someone out?
my playstyle is almost always going to be playing around Lumbering Death. If I can't get Lumbering Death off and they are a scary operative like a Space Marine, I'm probably going to charge and pass, make them fight me. Um, if I have to take a shot, I want to do it with 3 inches. I don't want to have to move the full range. So what I'm doing is definitely playing cagey as I move up the board. If I want to move aggressively, move dash the full 8 inches, get to where I need to sit, and then the next turn I'm going to activate and really unload on somebody. Because from there, it's usually I can move 3 inches, take 2 shots, or charge 3 inches if I'm lucky, because that's the other part of it, is it all plays into this play style of I'm going to move into these positions near the center line. If you want to kill me, you have to get close. So turn 1, if I know that somebody can get a shot off on turn 2, like if I'm going behind the light cover or something like that, I move dash and drop a smoke. Now they're having to take that calculus of moving within 2. Or I'll move dash next turn, do Cloud of Flies. Again, I'm just trying to force you to come near me. If I can get you close, then I can get my ceaseless and I can kill you.
So playing a little cagey-ish,
Yeah,
sounds like.
you start the game cagey and then you spring the trap. It's almost like you're playing scared. You're making people make these decisions because you're a very scary team, but you just move slow. So you just move methodically, slowly up the board, get towards that center line with the first wave, and then turn 2, you hit the gas, and you just start trying to trade as fast as possible. Points will come in later. That's where you play around counteracts if you can, things like that. If I know that I can get a counteract, then I'm going to move double shoot and stay on an objective because I'll tap it later. Who cares? That unless it's loot, of course, but that's the kind of idea that you're playing with this team, is you want to try to use effectively as much of your damage as possible to remove operatives, because the trade is always going to be in the negative for your opponent because of how sturdy you are.
All right. Well, I think I've got a pretty good grasp on it. I'm gonna have to go listen to this like 5 times on my way up to Tacoma for this weekend. But any like final thoughts that you have on Plague Marines in general, or like any matchups in particular, especially like teams that are considered like meta right now?
I would say Hyrotech Circle is a real toughie. They have a lot of damage output and they're extremely sturdy. With their cover rule of Undying Androids, Saturate comes in clutch with the Plague Caster and the Heavy Gunner in those matchups. Though I'd probably take the Fighter over the Heavy into that matchup as well. You're almost never going to be taking the Heavy Gunner. But you want to definitely make it as painful as possible for your opponent to take wounds off of you. So smoke grenades, staying in conceal, you just abuse obscuring as much as you can. And then if they do get damage off on you, your Blade Caster moves up and heals it. And that's kind of the idea is, oh man, I finally got some wounds off on these guys. And then you enter phase 2 of the boss fight and they're back to full health.
I like that the phase 2 of the boss fight. It's always super annoying. Like that's what it feels like playing against Felgor. It feels like kind of phase 2 almost, or any team that has a lot of healing.
Yeah, and that's been my playstyle this entire edition. Jaegers do it, Plague Marines do it, Felgor do it. They just make you really frustrated to where you're having to go, okay, I can kill this guy, and then it doesn't work out. And you have to take another operative that you had another plan for and go, well, and now I got to kill this guy because it's the sunk cost fallacy. And I make you fail that too. And then you're like, oh God, I'm down 2 operatives who've done nothing. And they both probably died because his warrior moved out and double shot. It creates some really frustrating games, and it can go your way very, very, very quickly.
So let's flip the script. And if you're playing into Plague Marines with other teams, like what do Plague Marines, what's the most annoying thing to play against, or the thing? I mean, we mentioned Hyrotech Circle and how they have a lot of damage and they're pretty sturdy, but like, are there other kind of gotchas or things that trap you with Plague Marines that, one, if you're playing against Plague Marines, you can use, or two, I need to look out for this weekend?
Yeah, you want to use as much piercing as possible against Plague Marines. If you have and this is where it's just it's not a playstyle thing, it's a team thing. If you have Ignore Obscuring, Plague Marines are scared because that takes away one of their tools. If you have Seek Light, Plague Marines are scared because that takes away one of their tools. They want you to come up close to them and kill them. And if you don't have to do that, you're going to probably do a lot of damage to them, and they can't do anything about it because of how slow they are. And then the way I joke about it is the floor of beating this team outside of like just straight out skilling your opponent is if you have a Melta, you have a good shot. If you don't have a Melta, you're probably going to lose. And those are the matchups that scare me the most. And I've tailored a lot of my playstyle into those teams. Aquilons, I have a very specific playstyle into. Higher Tech Circle because of how much piercing they have. Harkin Salvagers because they have piercing all over the place. And the two elites that have Meltas. So Nemesis Claw and Legionaries. Nemesis Claw being one of the scariest matchups for this team. With the Ventriloquar, if you position poorly early in the game, that Ventriloquar is going to come up. He's going to force you on to engage or dash you out into the open. They'll pass an engage or activation, and then the last activation, that Melt is going to shoot you in the face. And then you're going to start the turn, and they're going to use Return to Darkness to run away.
So what are you doing against Meltas then?
Hope and position.
Hope and position. All right.
If you can smoke, and they don't ignore obscuring, so Aquilons, like I don't get in range of that drop auger, and I let them all hit the table on turn 2, and I'll let them score whatever points they want to while I score as many as I can. And then turn 3, I turn on the gas and I'm able to double kill like crazy. Because they have 4-up saves and they only have 8L, and their melees are not good. So if you can do any of those things and just wait them out and not have anybody die on turn 2, you can hurt them really bad. Into Nemesis Claw, they have to come to your side of the table most of the time to score their points. Even with Implant, because of how far back you're going to be playing. So you want them to do that. You reveal contain at the end of turn 2. You force them closer to you. And then you just punish over and over and over because their melee is not as good as ours and they can't heal where we can. So you just try to reliably do chip damage to them and prevent that Melta from getting a shot off. Hide in melee if you can, whatever you have to, because the Ventriloquar can't do anything to you if you're hiding in melee.
Awesome. Shawn, any final thoughts on Plague Marines? I know you've been running them out. You ran them out at AVTT. Beautifully painted team, by the way. If you haven't, I'll put a link when this comes up to Zach's pictures of yours from AVTT. But anything else Plague Marines? Any other Plague Marine tips, like don't shower before the tournament, or just to really get into that nerdly feel?
No, I always shower before every tournament, and I also carry extra deodorant in my bag. So play opposite. Make your opponent confused why you're not being the stinky player. But you just need to play really safe with this team. Try to prevent any of your models being one-shot as much as you can, because they're so effective even on low wounds. Ignoring ignoring injury for free just allows them to really, really, really do a lot back, especially being Marines, so they can double shoot. It's just a super sturdy, safe team as long as you're not throwing models away. And you can even be reckless with them and just move dash out into the open on engage and drop a smoke at your feet and know that you have a counteract, and who cares if it's obscured? I don't care. I'm going to shoot you.
One last thing on operative selection. Are you pretty much flexing between the heavy gunner and one other operative?
Yeah, it's almost always going to be between the heavy gunner and the fighter. Into hordes, I like to sometimes just go like, if it's not into the dark and you don't need that long range shooting, it's worth it sometimes to sit the warrior and bring both the heavy gunner and the fighter. But almost always the choice is going to be between the heavy gunner and the fighter. If you know that you can't charge into them and do a lot of damage, then you bring the heavy gunner, because he doesn't have heavy on his gun. So he can move dash knowing that you can't shoot twice. And yeah, you'll lose your ceaseless, but you're hitting on 2s. So if you can get a good torrent off, especially with torrent 2, you can kill 2 to 3 models quite easily with him. or just move dash and guard on into the dark if you know that they have to get close to you. But I'm trying some stuff out against Sanctifiers. I don't think it's a winnable match with this team into Sanctifiers, even though people think it is. My teammate is Zach. I practice with him constantly, and I just don't see a win path when you're playing against an incredible Sanctifiers player. They're going to wait you out, and they're going to be able to get close without you doing anything about it, and they're going to kill you. So in those matchups, I'll sit the Icon Bearer because I'm not going anywhere near the midline ever. And the Icon Bearer has worse double tap abilities than the other two. But that's something I'm trying out. I still don't think that's a great idea. So most of the time it's going to be between the heavy gunner and the fighter. And you're bringing the fighter most of the time.
Cool. Well, Shawn, thank you so much. Like I said, I'm going to listen to this like 5 times and try and remember what we talked about. But I really appreciate you running through this with me. Selfishly, this again, like I said, a couple days ago, I just decided to sweat it out for this tournament, and this is sweating for me, actually, like looking into the team a couple days ahead of time. So I appreciate you chatting with us. Congratulations on AVTT, by the way. And do you want to address the rumors that you guys hit another player with a car, or?
I don't have my lawyer present, so I'm not going to be commenting on that any further at this time.
Okay.
But I do have a pretty cool karate belt to say that I won ABTT. So I think everything worked out as it should.
Yeah, well, you got what you got to do to get the trophies. So, well,
jokes aside, Max is an amazing person. I'm so sorry that happened to him. For those that don't know, when we went down for AVTT, we stayed with Jimmy Kelly, who is an incredible person, really close friend of mine. And we got to hang out with him and his family, and it was just a wonderful opportunity. And I hope that Max is okay. He didn't have any serious injuries, thank goodness, but we're hoping for a speedy recovery for him. And yeah, it was a really good time.
I mean, we talked to Jimmy earlier this week. What's today? Friday? Yeah. Earlier this week. And it sounded like Max just basically rubbed some dirt on it and got back out there and played. So
that's how he acted. He was really a trooper. And we were all telling him, like, of course, he wouldn't listen to us when we told him that he shouldn't play because he wanted to win. But we just were more worried about him than anything else. His mother is just an incredible person who was taking care of him that whole time. And he was really feeling at the end of that second day. But I think he's going to be okay. And I hope to play him again soon.
Yeah, well, in this world of games with our little war dollies, it's all about the people and making sure the people are okay. And I'm glad to hear that Max is okay. And it's got a great story to tell too. So Shawn, thank you. I'll see you in a couple days. And everybody, thanks for listening to the Vox Cascadia podcast. Let us know what you think about this. This is kind of the real first deep dive, because most of the time it's just me, Connor, and Tyler just half talking shit about a team. So Shawn, I thank you for being a smart kill team player and coming on the podcast. And I really appreciate it. And hopefully I can get that 3-0 and go to the Invitational after this.
Yeah, I'm rooting for you. And yeah, if there's anything I missed or any techniques or anything like that anybody might think that I can try better or things like that, because I'm just one player who loves this team, make sure to pop into the Kill Team Cascadia Discord and let us know, because I think that would be really cool.
Awesome. Thanks again, Shawn. See you in a couple days.